the sands of the arena.
That does not find you.
They hold at this house, and we among it. Sight never before witnessed in the arena.
They will never welcome a woman as one of them.
It is time to embrace your destiny. And if the
What if the most dangerous man in Spartacus' house of Ashur was never truly defeated? The legend of Ashur rises again with power, betrayal, and blood. In this video, M Cinema Reviews uncovers shocking facts and hidden details from Spartacus, House of Ashur 2025 that many fans completely missed. Stay till the end because some secrets behind this brutal world of gladiators will seriously surprise you. In a world where Ashur survived the events of Spartacus, his life takes a completely different path. Instead of dying like many believe, Ashur manages to rise from his painful past and slowly gain power. The same gladiator school, Torludus, where he was once treated like a slave, now belongs to him. A place that once controlled his life is now under his command, determined to prove his strength and intelligence. Ashur forms an alliance with a powerful female gladiator. Together, they began creating a new and shocking kind of gladiator spectacle that amazes the crowd but also deeply offends the Roman elite, who are not used to see such changes in their traditions. After helping the Romans defeat Spartacus and his rebellion, Ashur receives a huge reward. He is given control of the empty gladiator school that once belonged to the late Baticius. This is a major turning point in his life because he goes from being a former gladiator to becoming the master of his own ludus. However, the world of gladiators school is extremely competitive. Different ludi constantly compete with each other to produce the best fighters and the most exciting battles for the Roman audience. Since Ashur's school is new and still weak compared to the others, he starts at a serious disadvantage. To survive and succeed, Ashur must find a way to make his gladiator school stand out from the rest. He needs stronger fighters, smarter strategies, and unique spectacles that will capture the attention of Rome. Only by gaining fame and respect can he secure his place in this dangerous and ambitious world. The question is whether Assure's clever mind and ruthless ambition will be enough to give his leaders the power edge it needs to compete with the greatest gladiator schools of Rome. In the underworld, Lucretia mocks Assure for all the cruel and selfish things he did in life. Suddenly, Ashur wakes up in a strange alternate timeline where events have changed completely. In this reality, he is the one who killed Spartacus. Because of this, Marcus Carsus rewarded him by giving him control of Baticius's gladiator school, known as the Ludus. Ashur now dreams of rebuilding the great arena of Capua, which had been destroyed during Spartacus' rebellion. With support from Carthage, he hopes to rise in power and gain respect among the wealthy citizens of Capua. To improve his reputation, Ashur entered his best gladiator into the city games. However, things go badly when his champion is killed by the brothers Ferox, three dwarf gladiators owned by a rival Lanista named Proculus. This defeat is actually part of a plan by the noblewoman Kosushia, who wanted to embrace his Ashur and have his house banned from the games. Despite this humiliation, Ashur refuses to give up, looking for something new and exciting to attract attention. He buys an enslaved Nubian warrior woman. He gives her the name Achillia and plans to her into a female gladiator, something very unusual in Roman society. Achillia begins training with other fighters, but most of them do not respect her. The doctor of school, Chorus, doubts that she belongs there. Meanwhile, Assure's loyal servant and lover, Hilera, also fears that Achillia could bring danger to her master. Ashur is later invited to the villa of Senator Gabinius, the husband of Coscitia. Gabinius supports the Roman leader Pompey, who is a political rival of Crassus. During this visit, Ashur meets their widowed daughter Viridia, whose husband had been killed during Spartacus' rebellion. Surprisingly, Viridia thanks Ashur for killing Spartacus, which makes Coscian angry. Gabin- Gabinius questions Ashur about whether he is truly loyal to Rome and to Carsus, even though he used to be a slave. When Gabinius realizes Ashur's true thoughts, he angrily throws him out of the villa. Back at the Ludus, Achillia faces even more trouble. Two gladiators try to attack her, but she fights back fiercely and seriously injures one of them, who later dies. The gladiators demand punishment, so Chorus forces Achillia to fight him with real swords. Even though he defeats her, Chorus is impressed when she manages to wound him during the fight. Because of her courage and skill, he decided to spare her life and begins to respect her. The tension in the Ludus continues to grow. Ashur sends Chorus to build connection with another Lanista named Opiter in hopes of gaining favor and entry into future games. During Chorus's absence, the veteran gladiator Cleides becomes the temporary doctor. Opiter promises Chorus that he will allow Ashur's gladiators to fight in upcoming games if Chorus agrees to work for him instead. Later, Chorus survived an attack from a group of men he believes were sent by Proculus, though the attack was secretly ordered by Cossutia. Meanwhile, Ashur notices scars on Achilles' hand and begins training her personally. He senses that she carries emotional pain from her past. Achelia eventually reveals that she feels unworthy of being a warrior because she once failed to save a young girl from being kidnapped in her village. These memories haunt her deeply. At the same time, Hilaria's close friend Messia confesses her love for Hilara, but Hilara rejects her and chooses to stay loyal to Ashur. Gabinius later admits to Cossia that her harsh treatment of Ashur was actually a test to see where his loyalties truly lie. He believes Ashur could be useful in future conflicts against Corsus. However, Corsica secretly destroys an important letter and kills the man who failed to assassinate Chorus. Back at Ludus, Ashur demands Achelia swear loyalty to his house. To seal her commitment, he brands her with the symbol of Ludus. Achelia begins training in a unique style using two swords. Claudius helps her prepare to face the brothers Ferox in battle. During training, Claudius confesses that he fears for his arrogant son Tarchan, who is also a gladiator. Achelia and Tarchan become rivals after she defeats him during practice. Ashur soon receives a message that Corsus may visit Capua. Waiting to impress him, Ashur prepares a grand welcome. But when the visitor finally arrives, it is not Corsus, it is Julius Corsus. Caesar and his wife Cornelia quickly take control of Ashur's villa and openly humiliate him to show their power. Caesar later reveals that he secretly arranged the kidnapping of Viridia so could rescue her and gain favor with her family. This was part of a political plan to turn Gabinius against Pompey. During the upcoming games, Achelia is chosen as the champion of Ashur's Ludus. Instead of fighting the brothers Ferox as planned, she faces a powerful gladiator named Ammonius. At first, she struggles because he is much stronger than her, and she even suffers a severe injury to her hand. But she manages to move behind him and deliver a deadly strike, killing him and winning the fight. The crowd finally cheers her name, and Assure's reputation grows. However, Ashelia later falls dangerously ill from her injuries. During her fever dreams, she remembers the truth about her past when she tried to save the village girl long ago. She accidentally killed her with a thrown spear. This painful memory explains why she doubts herself as a warrior. As time passes, more political schemes and betrayals unfold in Capua. Ashur struggles with rivals, broken alliances, and deadly plot involving powerful Romans. The rival Lanista, Proculus, and the brothers Ferox become his greatest enemies. Eventually, battles between the gladiators turn more brutal and many lives are lost, including Claudius. His death deeply affects both Achilia and Tarchon. Meanwhile, Roman politics become even more dangerous. Caesar manipulates events in secret and pushes Ashur to take part in a deadly conspiracy. In the end, Ashur becomes trapped in a web of lies, revenge, and ambition. After a long chain of conflicts and betrayals, Ashur finally confronts Caesar himself. The fight is brutal and desperate. In the end, Ashur kills Caesar by stabbing him in the chest and splitting his head open with a sword, making the shocking climax of this alternate timeline. Production. The production of Spartacus, House of Ashur, represents one of the most ambitious and carefully orchestrated television comebacks stories in recent memory. Produced under the banner of Day Night Productions in association with the powerhouse distribution arm of Lionsgate Television. The series carried the weight of reviving a franchise that had maintained a devoted global fan base for over a decade, despite its original run having concluded in 2013. The executive producing team was led by Stephen S. Day Knight himself, alongside veteran director and producer Rick Jacobson and showrunning collaborator Aaron Helbing, whose experience on action driven genre television made him an ideal creative partner for the sprawling, visceral world that the Spartacus franchise inhabits. The line producing responsibilities were managed by Karen Bailey and Jacqueline Sabo, two experienced hands who oversaw the logistical challenges of bringing ancient Rome back to the life on screen in the modern era. Lionsgate Television's involvement in the project was pivotal. As one of the most commercially aggressive independent studio groups in the contemporary television landscape, Lionsgate brought financial muscle and distribution expertise that ensured the production would be supported at a level befitting its ambitions. Their partnership with Stars, the premium cable and streaming network that had been the original home of Spartacus franchise, meant that the creative team could rely on the institutional memory and audience infrastructure that had made the original series such a phenomenon in the first place. The combination of Dinart's return, creative vision, line Kate's financial and logistical support and Star's platform gave the series every structural advantage as it entered production. The 10 episode order was a deliberate and carefully considered format choice. Unlike the sprawling season long narrative arcs of its predecessors, House of Ashur was designed with the economy and focus of prestige limited series in mind. Each episode running between 51 and 63 minutes. This format allowed the writers and directors to maintain tighter narrative momentum while still delivering the genre hallmarks. Spectacular arena combat, intricate political scheming, morally ambiguous character dynamics, and the operatic violence that had become synonymous with the Spartacus name. The production companies understood that audiences returning to this world after a 12-year absence would need to be reminded why they fell in love with the franchises and that the 10 episode structure was the ideal canvas for that mission. The production design was handled by a dedicated team under the art direction of the George Hamilton, who served as supervising art director across all 10 episodes. The department also included art directors Mark Stephen and Taylor Vicohikia, both of whom contributed to the visual world building that transformed New Zealand soundstages and outdoor locations into the sun scorched streets, blood soaked arenas, and candlelit villas of ancient Rome. Costume designer Barbara Darga worked across the full run of episodes, responsible for creating the wardrobes that simultaneously communicated characters, social status, cultural origin, and historical plausibility, all within a stylized visual universe that had always occupied the space between historical drama and heightened fantasy. The makeup and prosthetics team, led by senior prosthetic artist Rebecca Allen and lead makeup artist Pilar Algira, were responsible of Ashur's distinctive appearance and for the arena wound, scars, and battle damage that gave the gladiatorial sequence their visceral authenticity. Panic supervised the hair department across all the 10 episodes. Technically, the production leaned heavily on the green screen and digital extension techniques that had been refined during the original Spartacus run. These methods allowed the production to create expansive Roman environments at a fraction of cost and logistic complexity that practical location shooting in Europe would have demanded, while also giving directors the precise visual control needed to achieve the franchise's trademark stylized aesthetic, saturated color grading, high contrast lighting, and the graphically heightened presentation of violence and action that made the original series feel like a living graphic novel. The post production visual effect team built digitally on what was captured practically in New Zealand, extending arena audiences into the thousands, adding the smoke and spectacle of Roman ceremonial occasions, and crafting the sweeping exterior shot of Capua, the established world's geography. Development and pre production. The seed of Spartacus, House of Ashur, were planted on February 9, 2023, when Stars made a formal public announcement that the sequel series of the original Spartacus was in active development, with Stephen S. DeKnight returning to produce. The announcement electrified the franchise's fan base, which had remained passionate and vocal in the years following the conclusion of original series' third season, War of the Damned in 2013. The original Spartacus had been defined by tragedy from its earliest days. Star Andy Whitfield had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma shortly after their first season aired, eventually leading to his death in September 2011. His replacement by Liam McIntyre for the subsequent two seasons had been handled with the remarkable sensitivity. But the weight of the backstory had always given the franchise a particular emotional gravity. The announcement of a sequel after that would one that would not attempt to recast or resurrect Spartacus himself, was therefore carefully framed as something distinct, a continuation of the world and its themes rather than a retread of the original story. The choice of Ashur as the central figure of the sequel was both audacious and strategically brilliant. Nick E. Tarabay's portrayal of the Syrian-born former gladiator turned spy had been one of the most memorable and polarizing elements of the original series. Ashur was, by any conventional measure, a villain, cunning, self-serving, willing to inflict cruelty on those around him in service of his own survival and ambition. He met his end in Spartacus. Virginius, the second season, killed at the hands of the gladiatrix Nevia of the slopes of Mount Vercius. His death had felt definitive, a judgment delivered by the narrative of the character whose crimes warranted no redemption. The premises of the House of Ashur therefore required a fundamental reimagining of the moral architecture of the universe, not a rehabilitation of Ashur exactly, but a repositioning of him as the lens through which audiences would experience a world he had previously inhabited as an antagonist. The official green light came on November 9, 2023, when Stars confirmed a full 10 episode series order under the title Spartacus House of Ashur. The announcement confirmed Dick Knight as showrunner and Nick E. Tarabay as the returning lead. In interviews conducted around the time of Greenlight and subsequently, Dick Knight articulated that creative philosophy behind the project was considerable clarity. The challenge, he as described it, was taking character who had done genuinely terrible things and finding a way to make audience root for him as a protagonist without sanitizing or excusing what he had done. The solution, Dean Knight explained, was elegantly simple in concept if demanding in execution. Introduce characters who are demonstrably worse than Ashur. This is Ashur under the enormous pressure from those antagonists and then watch what he does to survive and prevail. This approach leaned into one of the fundamental mechanisms of morally complex storytelling, the idea that the most interesting protagonists are not those who are good, but those who reveal something true and recognizable about human nature when placed under sufficient stress. The writing room assembled for House of Ashur was diverse and experienced. Aaron Helbing, whose credit included The Flash and the medieval drama Nightfall, co wrote several episodes and served as executive producer. The writing staff also included Sydney Quashie, Rihoma Offerdir, Aline Pipes, Adam Bradley, Beverly Occhio, Dia Mishra, and Henry G. M. Jones, a group whose varied background contributed perspectives that would prove essential to the series' treatment of gender, power, identity, and survival in a world defined by brutality and hierarchy. The ensemble of writers was tasked not only with crafting Assure's alternate timeline arc, but with populating his world with the characters complex enough to sustain dramatic conflict across 10 episodes while honoring the thematic and aesthetic legacy of original franchise. Casting announcement accumulated through 2024 and added considerable excitement to the project in July 2024. It was confirmed that Graham McTavish, best known internationally for his role as Devlin in Peter Jackson's The Hobbit trilogy and for his acclaimed work in Outlander and The Witcher, had joined the cast as Chorus, the Ludus trainer responsible for shaping Assure's Gladiator. McTavish brought immediate gravitas and physical credibility to the role. His imposing screen performance perfectly suited to the character operating at the intersection of martial authority and complex personal loyalty. Tanika Davis was cast as Nefret, also known as Ashelia, the fierce gladiatrix who would become one of the season's central figure, a character whose introduction into the traditionality male world of the arena would drive much of the thematic and dramatic conflict of the series. Claudia Black, the Australian actress, is known for her iconic work in Farscape and Stargate SG-1, was cast as Kosushia, bringing her formidable talent to playing a powerful, unpredictable woman to a world that demanded exactly that quality. Other cast additions include Iviana as Messia, Jamaica as Hilara, Lee Gill as Tyrus, Jordi Weber as Tarchan, India Sean Smith as Viridia, Cameron Rhodes as Juvidas, Jackson Glargus as Gaius Julius Caesar, a character whose presence in the series signaled the ambitious historical and political scope that the writing team intended to pursue. In July 2024, the announcement that generated perhaps the most enthusiasm among the long-term fans of the franchise was confirmed. Lucy Lawless would reprise her role as Lucretia in the guest appearance. Lawless's Lucretia had been one of the defining performances of the original Spartacus, Spartacus, a character of extraordinary complexity and theatric- theatrical power whose death at the end of Virginis had been one of the most dramatically changed movement in the entire series. Her involvement in the House of Ashur, even in the limited capacity, served a powerful signal that the new series understood its heritage and intended to honor it. Pre production in the months of leading up to film involved extensive preparation across multiple departments. The gladiatorial combat sequences that are the central to any entry in the Spartacus franchise demand extraordinary physical preparation from the performers. Actors were enrolled in the gladiator training boot camps with the session reportedly lasting 4.5 hours daily. Intensive regimen designed to develop both physical capability and the specific movement vocabulary of ancient Roman combat. These boot camps built not only on the visible athleticism that the arena sequence required, but also the kind of physical confidence and the mutual trust between the performers that make screen combat feel genuinely dangerous rather than merely choreographed. The production employed 9,411 extras over the course of filming, a remarkable deployment of the background talent that contributed enormously to the sense of scale and authenticity in the arena and public spaces. Filming. Principal photography on Spartacus House of Ashur commenced in July 2024 and concluded in October 2024, a production period of slightly more than 3 months. The entire series was filmed in New Zealand, continuing a production tradition that the original Spartacus franchise has established during its initial run from 2010 to 2013. The decision to return to New Zealand was motivated by a combination of practical, financial, and creative consideration, each of which reinforced the other. New Zealand's well developed film infrastructure, its concentration of experienced crew members familiar with large scale genre production, and the versatility of its landscape, capable of doubling for the sun bleached terrain of ancient Italy and the Mediterranean world, made it the logical home for the project. The production was based predominantly in and around Auckland, New Zealand's largest city. At the peak of production, the crew numbered 490 individuals, a substantial workforce whose collective expertise spanned every discipline required to bring ancient Rome to the life on screen. The choice of Auckland was strategic. The city offered both studio facilities needed for the interior set and the accessible outdoor locations that could serve as the exterior Capua Street, road, and landscapes. In Aculand's studio, the production constructed enormous, meticulously detailed set that recreated the Ludus, the gladiatorial training school that serves as the series' primary location, along with the villas, marketplace, cell bathing chamber, and intimate domestic spaces that populate Ashur's world. These sets were built to accommodate not only the dramatic scenes that unfold within them but also the complex practical effects, fight choreography, and camera movement that the director had planned. The use of New Zealand as a filming base had been integral to the visual identity of the original Spartacus series as well. The franchise's distinctive aesthetic, its heavy reliance on the digital environment combined with the practical foreground element, its heightened color palette, and its graphical novel approach to composition had been developed and refined over the original run in the ways that were specifically suited to the New Zealand's production infrastructure. By returning to the same country and drawing on many of the same experienced local crew members, the House of Ashur production was able to hit the ground running in terms of achieving the visual consistency that fans expected without needing to reinvent process that had already been effective. The New Zealand's film industry's familiarity with the ambitious international production shaped over decades by the project ranging from The Lord of Rings and The Hobbit to the Hunger Games supplementary shoots meant that the local talent base brought to the House of Usher was genuinely world class. Camera operators, lighting technicians, stunt coordinators, special effects supervisor, and the vast supporting infrastructure of a professional film crew were all available and experienced in the specific demand of the large scale genre production. This meant that the production could achieve within the geographical and logistical constraint of New Zealand a level of visual ambition that would have been considerably more expensive and difficult to replicate elsewhere. The filming schedule was organized to maximize efficiency while preserving the creative flexibility that the director need to be execute the series demand action sequence. Eight directors helmed the episode across the 10 episode run, each bringing a distinct sensibility to their assigned material while working within the consistent visual grammar established by the production design, cinematography, and the post production pipeline. Dick Jacobson, who served as an executive producer on the series in addition to his directing duties, helmed the premiere episode in the second episode and the season's finale, a structure that gave him significant influence over the visual and tonal bookend of the season. Jacobson's directional background, which included work on the original Spartacus series and the Ash vs. Evil Dead, made him the ideal creative anchor for the project. Other directors included Michael Hurst, Maja Willow, Julian's Homeless, Debs Peterson, Mark Baisley, Toa Fraser, and Robin Grace. The roster represented a mixture of established genre veterans and other directors whose work in other dramatic contexts brought fresh perspective to the visual language of the series. Willow, whose background in the prestige television drama included work on Project requiring sophisticated handling of both action and character intimacy, brought a particular precision to her episode. Hom- Holmes and Beasley brought their own distinctive approaches to the material, contributing to the variety of visual textures across the season. The collective result was 10 episodes run that felt cohesive in its overall aesthetic but varied enough in its individual episode direction to sustain viewers' engagement across the full run. The arena sequence, the gladiatorial combat that forms the dramatic and spectacular centerpiece of any Spartacus production, were among the most complex and demanding aspects of the filming process. The combination of practical stunt performance, carefully choreographed fight scenes, multiple camera angles, and the extensive background work provided by the thousands of extras required meticulous coordination between the stunt department, the directing team, the cinematography department, and the art department responsible for the physical environment of the arena itself. The combat sequence in the House of Ashur were designed to feel both rooted in the physical reality of trained human bodies in conflict with the elevated into something more operatic and stylized, consistent with the franchise's aesthetic traditional while pushing the formal vocabulary of screen violence into the new territory. The production also had to address the particular physical demand placed on Nick E. Tarabay in the central role. Unlike the gladiatorial protagonist of the original series, Ashur is not primarily a fighter. He is a strategist, manipulator, and political operator who uses his intelligence rather than the physical prowess as the primary weapon. But the world of the Ludus required every occupant, even its master, to maintain physical credibility, and Tarabay's preparation for the role involved significant physical conditioning alongside the intellectual and emotional work of inhabiting such a morally complex character. His collaboration with Dick Knight in the shaping Ashur's arc across the 10 episodes were central to the coherence of the series, and the depth of that collaboration is evident in the performance. A portrayal that manages to be simultaneously threatening, vulnerable, and darkly compelling in ways that serve the story's fundamental ambition. Post production. Post production on Spartacus, House of Ashur, was an extensive and technically demanding phase of the project, one that required integration of location captured footage with a significant amount of digital visual effect work before the series could achieve the polished, stylized appearance that audiences associate with the franchise. The original Spartacus had been notable for its pioneering use of high contrast, hyper stylized visual effect in a television context, drawing on the techniques that had been developed for the feature film production and adapting them to the faster pace and tighter budgets of episodic television. House of Ashur was tasked with the honoring and updating that visual tradition while also meeting the expectations that modern audience bring to the premium television production. The visual effect pipeline involved extensive digital environment construction, crowd augmentation, and the enhancement of practical effect that captured during photography. The arena sequence, in particular, required significant post production work to transform that physical set and extra populated foreground element into the roaring, packed spectacles of the Roman public entertainment. Digital technology allowed the production to populate the upper tier of the arena with thousands of virtual spectaculars, creating impression of full Roman crowd without the prohibitive cost of hosting and directing that many background performer. The integration between the practical and digital element was a key concern throughout the post-production process, with the visual effect team working closely with the colorist responsible for the series' distinctive grading to ensure that digital extension felt seamlessly embedded in the physical world of the footage. The color grading process was central to establishing the visual identity of the series and maintaining continuity with the franchise's established aesthetic. The original Spartacus had been characterized by an intensively saturated, high contrast palette that drew on the visual language of comic book and graphic novels, a palette that simultaneously evoked the sun scorched heat of the ancient Mediterranean world and the heightened, slightly unreal quality of mythological storytelling. House of Assure's colorist maintained the updated this aesthetic for the modern era, balancing the familiar franchise look with the contemporary expectation for visual clarity and detail. The result was a series that felt recognizably part of the Spartacus universe while also demonstrating the technical advances that had been made in digital image processing over the 12 years since the franchise's original run. Editing across the 10 episodes was a collaborative process managed in the close consultation with the showrunner and episode director. The rhythms of the series, its balance between the explosive kinetism of the arena sequence and the slower burning tension of political intrigue and the interpersonal drama, were shaped in the editing room, where the raw material captured during the photography was sculptured into the episode by episode viewing experience. The franchise's tradition of fast, aggressive cutting during the action sequence was maintained, contributing to the visceral impact that had always been one of the defining players of watching Spartacus. Equally important was the handling of the quieter scenes, the intimate character moments, the private conversation, the physiological cat and mouse that defines Ashur's interaction with the various power brokers in his world, where a different editorial sensibility, slower and more observational, was required to let performance breathe. The post production phase also encompassed the extensive sound design and audio mixing with the which gives the work that gives the series its sonic texture, the clang and the impact of gladiatorial combat, the ambient noise of the crowd, Roman street, and public spaces, the accusatis and of the ludus. All of these elements were built and refined during the post production to create an immersive sonic world consistent with the franchise's tradition of auditory spectacles. The sound design team worked in close collaboration with the music composition department, ensuring that the score and the sound design were complementary rather than competing forces in all over audio experience. The interplay between the Joseph Loduca musical score and the practical sound effect was particularly important in the arena sequence where the combination of crowd noise, impact sounds, and musical underscoring needed to build movement of maximum dramatic intensity. Throughout post production, the creative team was mindful of the need to calibrate each episode's pacing and content for the specific episode release format on Stars. Unlike a streaming service that releases full season simultaneously, Star's weekly release model meant that each episode needed to function as satisfying individual unit while also contributing to the overachieving narrative movement of the season. The premium event, releasing the first two episodes simultaneously, was a deliberate strategy designed to give returning and new audience enough of the series world to become invested before settling into the weekly rhythm. The subsequent episodes were edited to honor both the standalone player of individual installment and the cumulative building of the character relationship and narrative stakes that would pay off in the season's finale. Music. The musical score for Spartacus, House of Ashur was composed by Joseph Lodica, whose return to the franchise represented one of the most significant creative continuity between the original series and the new production. Lodica's career is a remarkable chronicle of genre television scoring. His credits include Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, The Beloved Sword and Sandal Adventure series, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Xena, Warrior Princess, and the horror of anthology Chucky, and the Venture series, The Librarian, The Levert, and his work on the original Spartacus had been widely praised for its success in blending the conversation of classical epic scoring with contemporary electronic textures and the occasional intrusions of rock influenced aggression, a musical approach that perfectly mirrored the series' visual strategy of juxtaposing ancient subject matter with the modern stylistic attitudes. Loduca's score for House Assures was released by Lakeshore Record as a digital soundtrack album in 2026 under the title Spartacus House of Assure, music from the Stars original series. The album ran to 35 minutes and 36 seconds and include 11 tracks drawn from the across 10 episodes run. The track listing reveal both the musical scope of the score and specific dramatic context it was created to serve. The opening track, Hail Caesar, ran to 5 minutes and 15 seconds and was composed for the season finale. The Heaven Tremble is the album's longest piece at 7 minutes and 38 seconds, and the tracks such as Torsion and Ashelia, carrying Clydes' honor of his memory and his cheap proves her worth, signal the deep integration of the score with specific character relationship and dramatic moment. The musical palette of the House of Assure score reflects Lord Duca's characteristic approach to genre television and a blend of heavy percussion, synthetic beats, and diverse cultural influence that serve the story's unique position and drama set and ancient Rome but filtered through the distinctively contemporary sensibility. Reviewers noted that the score's incorporation of Arabic and African musical motifs, a particularly appropriate choice given the cultural background of several key characters, including Ashur himself, whose Syrian origins are central to his identity and his position on the social hierarchy of Roman Capua. These cultural musical influences were woven into the score's broader fabric with a considerable sophistication, avoiding exoticization while genuinely expanding the sonic world of the series beyond the familiar territory of classical Greco-Roman music referencing. The decision to bring Lord Yuka back for the House of Ashur was both practically and symbolically significant. Practically, his intimate familiarity with the musical world of the franchise, the thematic material, the rhythmic approach, and the balance between orchestral and electronic element meant that the new score could establish immediate sonic continuity with the original series without feeling derivative. Audiences hearing familiar musical gesture from the original Spartacus score would experience a sense of homecoming, while the new thematic material Lord Yuka developed for House of Ashur original character and situation would expand and refresh the franchise's musical vocabulary. Symbolically, his return signaled to audience that the production had made a genuine effort to reunite key creative collaboration from the original run, a gesture of respect for the franchise's heritage that extended beyond the mere marketing. Lord Yuka has spoken in the past about his approach to scoring the original Spartacus files with considerable eloquence, describing the creative freedom the project afforded and his awareness of the multiple generic conversation it invited him to blend. His framing of the original Spartacus score as drawing on the convention of classical drama, the sword and sandal genre tradition, and the possibilities opened up by contemporary visual effect and the editing technique was equally applicable to his approach of House of Ashur. The blending of classical and rock influenced musical idioms, which he had described in the interviews about the original series as additive rather than diluting, appear to have been retained as the core strategy in the new score, contributing to the tonal consistency between the two productions while also reflecting the evolution that 12 years of musical development had brought to Lord Yuka on practice. The scores released through the Lakeshore Records, a label with the extensive history of the releasing soundtrack album for prestige television and film production, ensured that the musical reached audience beyond the series itself. The availability of the soundtrack in both standard FLAC and high resolution 24-bit format acknowledged the audiophile market for the television score and reflected the production's confidence in the quality of Lord Yuka's work as the stand-alone listening experience. The relatively compact runtime of the released album, 35 minutes drawn from the 10:50 to 60:33 minutes episode, suggests that the commercial release represents a curated selection of the score's highlight rather than the complete accounting of Lord Yuka's musical contribution to the series. Release Theatrical. The television's production developed for the released on Star's premium cable and streaming platform. Spartacus, owner of Ashur, House of Ashur did not receive a traditional theatrical release in the sense of a wide cinematic distribution. However, the series' promotional campaign included significant high-profile public presentation that served function analogous to the kind of audience anticipation building that the theatrical release pursued. The most notable of these was the San series presence at the San Diego Comic Con 2025, one of the most prominent entertainment convention in the world and the key venue for generating fan excitement and media coverage around the major genre television production. At San Diego Comic Con 2025, held in July of that year, several months before the December premiere, the Spartacus House of Assure production brought what was described in the arena to convention floor, creating the immersive physical activation designed to put attendees in the direct experiential contact with the world of the series. This kind of large scale convention activation is sophisticated marketing investment that serve both immediate coverage generation and the long term social media amplification as the convention attendees document and share their experience across platforms. The Comic Con presence gave the production team an opportunity to reveal first look image and promotional material to a highly engaged fan audience well in advance of the December premiere, building anticipation during the critical summer period when audiences are making their fall television view decision. At the Comic Con presentation, showrunner Steve S. Dick Knight shared insignificant information about the creative ambition of the series, including confirmation that he had developed a five-season roadmap for the Spartacus sequel. This revelation was remarkable for its scale. It suggested that the House of Ashur was convinced not as one of limited event but as the foundation of a long-running franchise continuation with the writer and producer having already mapped out the narrative territory they intended to explore over the extended run. Dick Knight also teased the possibility of additional spin-off set with the Spartacus universe, signaling that stars and the production team saw the franchise as a sufficiently rich creative and commercial property to support multiple parallel narrative threads. These announcements generated considerable coverage and discussion within the fan community, contributing to the sense of occasion that surrounded the December premiere. The first look image released through the Entertainment Weekly in June 2025 provided audience with their initial visual introduction to the world of House Ashur, including the main character and something of the series' visual aesthetic. These exclusive reveals, staged event in the media landscape of contemporary television promotion, are generated significant coverage and discussion, particularly around the introduction of the character Ashelia, the female gladiatrix whose presence in the arena would prove to one of the series' most discussed and debated element. The image also allowed audience to see Nick E. Tarabay transformation from the Ashurs they remembered from the original series, visibly aged, carrying the weight of the character's new position and responsibilities, and the physical presence of the new cast members in their period costumes. The official trailer released in the January 2025 through the Screen Rant provided the first moving image preview of the series and helped solidify audience expectation for what House of Ashur would deliver. A subsequent set of action-packed promotional images dropped in September 2025 alongside the official announcement of the December 5 premiere date, making the final stretch for the promotional campaign before the series went live on Stars. The premiere date announcement confirmed the two episodes launch format, the releasing the first two installments simultaneously as a premiere event before settling into the weekly Friday release schedule for the remaining 8 episodes. Home media. Following the conclusion of the series' initial run on Starz, Spartacus House of Ashur became available through the variety streaming and physical home media format. The series was made available for streaming through the Starz app and its associated distribution channel, including the Starz Apple TV channel, the Starz Roku Premium channel, the Starz Amazon channel, Filio, and Spectrum On Demand, a broad array of platforms that reflected the fragmented but wide-reaching nature of contemporary premium television distribution. Viewers accessing the series through Hulu was also able to do so by adding stars as an add-on subscription, further extending the series' potential audience reach. The series was simultaneously available to UK viewers through the MGM Plus, which could be accessed as an add-on through Amazon Prime Video. UK availability began on December 6, 2025, one day after the US premiere. A near simultaneous international release that reflected Star's interest in building a global audience for the franchise and minimizing the piracy risk that delayed international release traditionally invite. The MGM Plus distribution deal for the UK market was commercially logical arrangement given MGM's established relationship with the genre television content and the complementary demographic of the MGM Plus subscriber base, the Spartacus franchise historical audience. The physical home media release of Spartacus House of Ashur Season 1 was announced in the two-disc Blu-ray format. The Blu-ray set was confirmed to be region free, a significant consideration for the international fans who wish to add the series for their physical collection regardless of their geographic location. The release was described as the compatible with the US Blu-ray player and the distribution was handled through the established channel with the USPS tracking included the direct orders. The announcement of the Blu-ray release in 2026 was met with enthusiasm for franchise fans who prefer physical media, particularly given the original Spartacus season had accumulated dedicated physical collector over the years. At the time of the series' initial run, a DVD release date for the United States had not yet been formally announced, so the Blu-ray release confirmation suggested that DVD availability would follow the due course. The series' strong critical reception and demonstrated streaming popularity across the multiple platforms made comprehensive physical media release commercially logical, ensuring that the series would be accessible to the audience who either preferred physical ownership or lacked reliable streaming access. The two-disc Blu-ray format accommodating 10 episodes of 51 to 63 minutes each was a practical and fan-friendly approach to physical presentation. The Just Watch streaming tracking service noted that Spartacus House of Ashur was ranking at a position 234 on its daily streaming chart, a data point that placed the series within the actively watched tier of streaming content but also illustrated the competitive landscape of modern streaming where hundreds of the series compete simultaneously for audience for attention. The series' consistent presence on streaming chart across multiple platforms in multiple countries was tracked by services like Flix Patrol, which noted the period following the premiere that House of Ashur was performing strongly on the streaming services across Australia, Sweden, and United States and other international markets. The global reach was consistent with the franchise's historical appeal, which had always extended well beyond its American home market. Reception. Box office. As a premium capable and the streaming television series produced and for distributed by Stars, Spartacus House of Ashur did not generate traditional box office revenue in the theatrical theatrical sense. Its commercial performance was measured instead through the matrices appropriate to the streaming and premium capable cable industry, subscriber acquisition and retention figure, total viewing hours, platform tracking data, and international distribution performance. Stars, as a subscription based service, does not publicly release the granular viewership data that would allow for precise quantitative comparison with the theatrical release or with the other streaming competitor, making definitive commercial assessment difficult from the outside. What is clear from available evidence is that Spartacus House of Assure performed well as a streaming acquisition and retention driver from its premiere onward. The series' performance on Flix Patrol's streaming ranking service confirmed the House of Assure was among the most watched content on platforms like Stars, Prime Video, and stand across the multiple international market in the week following its December 5, 2025 premiere. The consistency of this close platform streaming performance suggested that the series was both attracting new subscriptions and re-engaging the lapsed one, a commercially vital function for a franchise revival on a subscription platform where the ability to convert fan enthusiasm into paid subscription is the primary commercial matrix. The series debuted in December 2025 placed it in a competitive window for a year and streaming consumption when audiences are typically spending more time with the entertainment content and the theatrical and streaming release calendar are both crowded with high profile titles. The fact that House of Assure was consistently visible on streaming chart across the competitive period suggested that the franchise's returning fanbase was substantial and highly motivated in its engagement. The February 2026 confirmation by denied that the second season had already been written and that he was confident of a green light it was itself strong indicator of a commercial success. Sequel confidence of that kind is rarely expressed publicly without underlying viewership data to support it. The series was categorized on physical media wholesale platform as an action biography and period drama, a genre categorization that aligned it with the commercial categories in which the original Spartacus had performed strongly. The description of the series on a wholesale distribution platform as generating strong critical response that praised Nick E. Tarabay's performance as magnetic and Britain reflected the positive commercial environment that the series was operating in, where strong critical reception typically translated into sustained audience engagement and discovery beyond the initial premiere period. The franchise's name recognition in the sword and sandal genre, a category that had relatively few strong contemporary competitors, gave House of Assure a degree of market distinctiveness that supported its commercial positioning. The revenue generated by the soundtrack album released through the Lakeshore record, while modest compared to the primary commercial proposition of the series itself, represented an additional ancillary income stream consistent with the franchise's multi-platform commercial presence. The availability of the score of high-resolution audio format was signaled that the Lakeshore anticipated meaningful demand among the audiophile and the dedicated fan segment of the audience. A commercially small but culturally significant consistency that contribute disproportionality to the long-term cultural health of the franchise through continued engagement, word of mouth, and community maintenance activity. Critical response. The critical reception of Spartacus, House of Assure was, by the standard of both genre television and franchise revival, genuinely exceptional. On Rotten Tomatoes, the primary review aggregation platform for the English language entertainment industry, the series debuted with a perfect 100% tomato meter score based on 6 reviews ahead of its December 5, 2025 premiere. A flawless opening that signaled the unanimity of the initial critical enthusiasm. As more reviews were added in a day following the premiere, the score settled at 92% based on the 12 reviews, a figure that represents strong critical consensus in the favor of the series while acknowledging the reality that not every voice aligned with the enthusiastic majority. The 92% figure was a significantly improvement of the score achieved by the original Spartacus across the 4 seasons. Whole tomatometer score had ranged from 52% to 73%, suggesting that critics responded to House of Assure as more consistently realized that ambitious piece of work than its predecessors. On Metacritic, which employ a weighted average methodology to synthesize critical opinion into a single numerical score, Spartacus, House of Ashur, received a score of 72 out of 100 based on 8 critics, a figure that site categorized as indicating generally favorable reviews. The Metacritic score positioned the series in the upper tier of genre television reception, reflecting the broadly positive but occasionally qualified assessment that characterized the critical response. The divergence between the Rotten Tomatoes percentage 92% and the Metacritic weighted average 74 is typical of cases where critics broadly approve of a series, making it fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, while some express reservation that lower the overall average score without tipping it into unfavorable territory. Among the individual critical voices whose reviews generated attention, Collidifer Jeff Ewing made one of the boldest assessments in his declaration that the series essentially pulled off the miraculous, leaning on the show's use of mythological and alternate history logic to give definitely killed character a new dramatic life. This framing as a kind of narrative miracle captured something of the critical consensus and that the creative team had managed generally difficult feat of making Ashur's reconstruction both dramatically credible and emotionally engaging. The Hollywood Reporter's Angie Han offered the more measured but equally positive assessment, observing that the series understood the dynamic which its explicit genre player, the NSWF spectacles of the combat sexuality, serve as the entry point for a deeper engagement with the character that sustain long-term audience investment. This insight that the franchise's surface provocation are vehicles for the genuine emotion connection rather than the substitute for it was one of the more perceptive critical observations made about the series. Varieties are my View noted in her review that Spartacus, House of Ashur, is a dynamic follow up to the previous chapter that the creator Dig Knight world reminded as intriguing as ever in the spin off. This framing of the series as a genuine constitution of the established creative vision rather than the pale imitation or cynical revival was consistent with the broader critical consensus that the Knight authoritative control of the project had preserved the qualities that made the original series compelling while adapting them to a new character focus and alternate history premise. CBR's Martin Carr praised the series as worthy entry in the franchise, noting Tarabay's physicality and noting that the actor had barely aged a day in 12 years since the original's conclusion, an observation that carried both a literal dimension, Tarabay's striking physical presence and remained intact, and the metaphorical one, his ability to inhabit the character that felt afresh as committed as it had been in the original run. The audience reception, however, was considerably more divided than the critical consensus. On the Rotten Tomatoes audience score, the Popcorn meter, the series received a 45% rating following its debut, a figure that revealed a substantial disconnect between the professional critical opinion and responses of the least a portion of the general viewing public. This critic audience score gap attracted significant media attention and generated coverage across the entertainment news sites, with many articles nothing the review bombing pattern that appeared characterize the audience score. Numerous negative audience reviews focused explicitly on the introduction of Achilles, the female gladiatrix, with many reviewers objecting to the premises of a woman competing successfully in the arena on terms of physical equality with male gladiator. These objections were often expressed using the terminology of contemporary culture war discourse. Terms like woke, girl boss appeared repeatedly in negative audience review, situating the controversy around the House of Ashur within the broader pattern of audience reviewing the campaign that had targeted other genre production featuring prominent female protagonists in traditionally male roles. The critical and fan community response to this audience backlash was itself revealing. Several reviews and news pieces noted the irony that the original Spartacus series, which had featured prominently female characters in position of power and dramatically centrally, most obviously Lucretia and Lithilia, had received audience scores well above 80% across its run, suggesting that the objection to House of Ashur was specifically targeted at Achilles' arena role rather than reflecting a general discomfort with female character in the franchise's world. Some positive audience reviewers specifically pushed back against what they characterized review bombing. noting that the negative campaign against the series was undermining what they experienced as a genuinely high quality production that honored the franchise's legacy. Among the viewers who engaged the series on its own terms, the response was frequently enthusiastic. Social media commentary around the premiere was dominated by expressions of relief and delight from long term franchise fans who had feared that the 12-year gap would produce a diluted or sanitized version of what they loved. The visceral authenticity of that combat, political complexity of the plotting, and the quality of performances, particularly Tarabay's central turn and the McTavish commanding presence as goddess, received consistent praise from engaged viewers. The series' production values were repeatedly cited as evidence that the creative team had maintained the franchise's commitment to visual spectacles at the highest available level. From IMDb user perspective, the series was subject of significant debate. Some users described it as honoring the legacy of original while adding meaningful depth to the universe through the morally complex lens of Ashur's perspective. Others criticized that the restoration logic of the alternate history premises, arguing that the definitiveness of Ashur's death in the original series was precisely what made it dramatically satisfying, and that undoing it felt like a compromise of the franchise's narrative integrity. These objections represented a thoughtful, critical engagement with the series' central creative gamble. The question of whether the pleasure of exploring the alternate timeline were worth the cost of reopening what had been definitely closed. The critical consciousness taken a whole position Spartacus, House of Ashur as one of the most successful genre television franchise revival of recent years, a production that managed the difficult balance between the serving existing fans and making itself accessible to newcomers, between honoring an established creativity legacy and finding fresh traumatic territory within it. The series' 92% Rotten Tomatoes score was not merely a data point but a reflection of genuine critical respect for the ambition and craft that Dick Knight and his collaborator brought to the project. The Metacritic score of 74 was similarly a marker of genuine quality, acknowledging that even the most enthusiastic assessment came with qualifications about pacing, about the alternate history, premises, premise about the difficulty of fully sustaining sympathy for the protagonist, whose crimes were never minimized, that prevented the series from achieving universal adulation while confirming its status as a serious and worthwhile contribution to the franchise. Perhaps the most significant long term indicator of the series' reception was the Knight's February 2026 announcement that a second season had already been written and that he was confident of receiving a green light. This statement, made in an interview with TV Insider following the broadcast of the season finale on February 6, 2026, came at a moment when the critical and commercial reception of season 1 had given the creative team every reason for confidence. The implicit message was that House of Ashur had not merely survived as a franchise extension but had genuinely the multi-season run that could renewed the creative momentum of the Spartacus universe, establishing a foundation for a multi season run that could explore the full scope of 5 season roadmap that Day Knight had articulated at San Diego Comic Con. For the franchise's devoted global audience, this was perhaps the most gratifying piece of news to emerge from the entire House of Assure production cycle. Confirmation that the story they had rearranged was with was not a farewell but a beginning. Casting. The casting of Nick A. Tarabay as Ashur formed the unshakable foundation of Spartacus. House of Ashur, with the Lebanese American actor reprising the role he originated in Spartacus, Blood and Sand more than a decade earlier. Tarabay's return was announced in November 2023 when Stars greenlight the 10 episode series, instantly signaling continuity with the original franchise while pivoting into an alternate timeline where Ashur survives the world Vesuvius massacre and rises from the opportunistic bookkeeper to the ruthless dominance of his own ludus. Born in Barriott in 1975 and raised in the United States, Tarabay brought a lived-in understanding of survival and ambition that had already made Ashur one of the most compelling anti-hero in the Spartacus saga. His early television work on the Sporanos as that ill-fated mustache established him as an actor capable of layering menace beneath charm, a skill he refined across the guest spot on Crash and CIS, and a layer as Kotai Ghazi in The Expanse, where his performance balanced political cunning with the quiet vulnerability. In the new series, Tarabas Ashore shed the psychophyletic mask he once wore under Batitius and Lucretia, transforming into calculating owners whose wield power with the same precision he once used to manipulate gladiator from the shadows. The physical demand of the role required Tarabay to rebuild then lean, scared physique. Audience remembered production report from New Zealand that described him undertaking intensive gladiator boot camp alongside the ensemble, focusing on sword work, endurance training, and the brutal choreography that defined the franchise's fight sequence. Tarabay's chemistry with returning guest star Lucy Lawless as Lucretia anchored the premiere episode. The reunion scene dripping with the unresolved resentment and ghostly manipulation that set the tone for Usher haunted second chance at dominance. His portrayal emphasized the character's evolution from the slave to master, exploring themes of revenge, legacy, and the corrupting nature of authority in ways that felt both fresh and deeply rooted in original series DNA. Tarabay's commitment extended beyond performance. He collaborated closely with the creator Stephen S. Denied on script revision to ensure Ashur's voice remained consistent yet allowed room for the moral decay that drive the alternate timeless narrative. The actor's international appeal on the throw roles in The Expanse and upcoming Christopher Nolan project helped the broaden the show global audience while reassuring longtime fans that heart of Spartacus universe remained intact. Graham McTavish, casting as Koraz, Ashur's doctorate and former gladiator turned enforcer, injected veteran gravities and physical authority into the Ludus hierarchy. The Scottish actor, born in 1961, arrived with a resume stacked with iconic warrior and authority figures that made him an ideal choice for the role of trainer who commands respect through both brutality and strategic loyalty. McTavish's breakthrough as Devilian in Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy showcased his ability to convey quiet man's and battlefield prowess with his turn as Saint of Killer in Preacher demonstrated a knack for blending more complexity with larger than life presence. Roles in Rambo, Outlander as Dougal Mackenzie, and The House of Dragon as Harlond Westling further cemented his reputation for portraying battle hardened men whose personal code clashed with the system they served. In Spartacus, House of Ashur, Chorus functioned as Ashur's right hand, a freed gladiator who trained the new recruit with unyielding discipline while quietly advancing his own ambition with the house. McTavish's performance layered the character with the stubble political maneuvering, revealing Chorus as the more than a mere enforcer but a man who understands the arena's blood-soaked economy as intimately as Ashur does. casting announcement in July 2024 highlighted the McTavish addition alongside several other key players, with stars emphasizing fit McTavish for the franchise's signature blend of sword and sandal action and intricate scheming on set. McTavish led much of the gladiator training regime, drawing on his extensive fight choreography experience to ensure authenticity in the arena sequence. His portrayal also marked a personal milestone, as report indicate it featured his first on-screen exploration of gay character arc, adding layer of forbidden desire and hidden vulnerability that contrasted sharply with the hyper-masculine Ludus environment. Meg Travis scenes opposite Tarabay's cracker with mutual respect laced with underlying tension. They shared history of battlefield survival, creating dynamic that echoed the mentor-protege relationship of the original series while subverting them through the chorus in emancipated status. The actor's deep voice and commanding physicality on the through decades of stage work and genre television made every training montage and arena confrontation feel visceral, reinforcing the show's reputation for unflinching deception of Roman brutality. McTavish's involvement helped anchors the supporting cast, providing a bridge between the established Spartacus aesthetics and the new ensemble fresh energy. Danica Davis, a selection as Angelia, the groundbreaking female gladiator, also known by her slave name Nefret, represented one of the most significant casting innovation in the Spartacus franchise. The Canadian actress, born in 1985, had built a career through steady television work in series like The Book of Negros, 1902, incorporated Jupiter's Legacy, and Guillermo del Toro Cabinet of Curiosities, where she consistently delivered fierce, layered performance in the genre and dramatic roles. Her casting was announced in the July 2024 wave alongside McTavish and others, with stars positioning Aeschylia as the first major female gladiator in Spartacus universe, a character driven by unrelenting desire to surpass her male counterpart and earn freedom through the blood and sand. Davis and background in physical roles made her natural fit. Her work in Jupiter's Legacy required extensive stunt training and combat choreography skills she refined further for the House of Ashur demanding arena sequence. Production account described her immersion in Gladiator Bootcamp, where she trained alongside the male cast to master swordplay, shieldwork, and the acrobatic fighting style that distinguished Achilles' bouts. Davis brought the enigmatic intensity to the role, infusing Achilles with hidden secrets from her past that slowly unravel across the season, creating a character whose motivations feel both personal and politically charged with the Ludus power structure. Her on screen presence commanded attention in the promotional material, with first look images emphasizing her and steely gaze and promised to light up the arena. Davis' chemistry with Tarabay and McTavish elevated the training sequence, turning them into their tense battleground of respect, rivalry, and reluctant alliance. The role marked her first major leading position in the high profile franchise, and her performance captured in the franchise's tradition of empowering marginalized fighters while expanding the representation through a black female gladiator whose arc challenges Roman gender norms. Davis spoke in an interview about the emotional weight of portraying a woman craving power from a system designed to crush her, drawing parallels to her own experiences navigating industry barrier. Her fight choreography, praised for its fluidity and ferocity, became a highlight of the series' action set pieces, blending practical effect with the raw, blood-soaked style and that defined the Spartacus. Through Achilles, Davis not only expanded the Ludus roster but also deepened the show's exploration, resilience, identity, and the cost of ambitious in ancient Rome. Claudia's black recruitment as Cossia layered the add of aristocratic cunning and genre pedigree to the Roman elite subplot. The Australian actress, born in 1972, entered the project with an unparalleled resume in science fiction and fantasy, most notably as Irene Sun in Farscape and Yala Mal Doran across the Stargate franchise. Her appearance in Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, The Never, and the Star Wars Ashoka further established her as a master of delivering sharp witted, morally ambiguous women who navigated power structure with surgical precision. Black casting was part of the July 2024 announcement positioning Cossia as the McLevian wife of Senator Gabinius and mother to Viridia, a woman who schemes relentlessly to elevate her family's status through alliances, betrayal, and calculated marriages. Her role required a shift from the action heavy science fiction she often inhabited to more dialogue driven intrigue of Roman high society, yet Black infused Cossia with the same commanding presence and the stubble means that defined her iconic genre character. Reports from the New Zealand set noted Black seamlessly integration into the ensemble, particularly her scenes opposite Andrew McFarlane as Gabinius, where their portrayal crackled with the pragmatic corruption of late Republic political backlash experience with the long-running television series allowed her to develop Cossia with arc with nuisance, revealing the character's vulnerability beneath the polished exterior of Roman nobility. Her chemistry with India Shawn Smith as daughter Viridia highlighted generational tension within the family, while interaction with the Ludus characters underscored the class divide that fueled much of the series' conflict. Black's vocal delivery, rich, authoritative, and laced with irony, elevated every senate intrigue and dinner table manipulation, making Cossia a formidable counterpoint of Ashur's rising power. The actress's long-standing fanbase from Farscape and Stargate brought additional crossover appeal, drawing the viewers who appreciated the franchise blend of political drama and visceral combat. Black's commitment to the role extended to the costume fitting and historical research, ensuring Cossia wardrobe and mannerism reflected authentic patrician elegance while hitting the ruthlessness beneath her performance solidified the show's ambition to match the original Spartacus in both spectral and sophisticated character work among the elite. Jamaica Wagon, a casting as Hilara, introduced a fresh, emotionally grounded perspective to the villa's slave population. The Australian actress, born around 1995, came into the role with credits in Home and Away as Naomi Stevens, Step Dave, 800 Words, and various independent films that showcased her range in dramatic and romantic storyline. Announced in July 2024, Vaughan portrayed Hilara as a young house slave deeply in love with Ashur, her affection complicated by his transformation into a dominus whose ambition threatened to destroy every people around him. Wagon's relative newcomer status contrasted with the more established cast, yet her performance brought an authentic vulnerability and quiet strength that grounded the series' more operatic element. Her scenes opposite Tarabay explored the painful intersection of personal desire and political reality, with Hilara's kind nature increasingly at odds with Ashur's growing cruelty. The wagon's perception included workshop of the emotional toll of servitude in Roman society, allowing her to convey Hilara's internal conflict through the stubble gestures and expressive eyes rather than overexposition. The role positions Vaughan as the potential breakout star, with critics nothing how her portrayal humanized the often overlooked perspective of villa slaves amid the ludus brutality. Her chemistry with Ivana Barco as fellow slave Messia created a sisterly bond that provided emotional respite and amid the season's escalating violence. Wagwan's work in Australian television had already honed with her ability to balance romance with dramatic stakes, skills she applied to make Hilara's arc one of the quiet rebellion, heartbreaking realization. The casting choice reflected the production's commitment to diverse representation, with Wagwan's performance adding emotional depth to alternate timeline narrative and reinforcing the franchise's tradition, elevating supporting character into compelling figures. Ivana Barcule's addition as Messiah further enriched the slave dynamics within Ashur's household, The Spanish actress, widely recognized for her breakout performance as Ophelia in Guillermo del Toro Pan's Labyrinth at age 11, brought a history of portraying resilient young women navigating fantastical and historical worlds. Subsequent roles in the Shahnara Chronicles and various international productions demonstrated her growth into more mature, layered character. Pacquiao's casting in July 2024 aligned with the production emphasis on international talent, and she portrayed Messia as Hilara's fellow house slave, a character whose loyalty and quiet observation provide insights into the villa's undercurrent and resistance and survival. Barquio's expressive face and stubble intensity allowed Messia to serve as both confident and moral compass. Her scenes with Vagon highlighted the fragile solidarity among the slaves in a world dominated by Roman masters. Her experience with Del Toro blend of magic and horror translated effectively to the Spartacus universe's mix of brutality and humanity, giving Messi a moment of quiet deafness that resonated without overshadowing the main plot. Barker's preparation involved historical immersion and physical conversion conditioning to authentically despite the labor and emotional strain of servitude, contributing to the series' immersive world building. Her performance added emotional texture to the household scenes, balancing an arena spectacle with her intimate character drama. Jodie Weber's portrayal of Tarchon introduced youthful vitality and romantic tension to the gladiator's rank. The New Zealand actor, born in 1991, gained early recognition as a Gold Ranger in the Power Ranger Ninja Steel before the expanding into dramatic roles in Shortland Street, The Deadland, Choose Love and Prosper. Weber's casting as the hot-headed young gladiator with immense talent but impulsive tendencies fit into the production's need for dynamic new fighter within Ashur's Cluedos. Tra- Tarchan's arc explored the pressure of legacy as the son of recurring gladiator Cletus played by Don Hamill, creating father-son conflict that mirrored border theme of inheritance and rebellion. Weber's athletic background and the fight training enabled him to perform complex arena sequences that showcased both raw and reckless flair, making Trajan a standout battle montage. His romantic subplot, positioned as the series' primary male lead in the matter of heart, added layers of personal stakes, the political surrounding of the house, Weber's natural charisma, and New Zealand's route aligned with the production's filming location, fostering authentic ensemble chemistry during the intensive bootcamp phase. Indian Sean Smith casting as Viridia brought innocence and naivety to the arts aristocratic side of the narrative. The actress, known for appearance in The Pine Still Whisper, Supernatural, and Andor, portrayed the daughter of Cossia and Gabinius as young woman whose sheltered worldwide began the fracture upon exposure to Ludus realities. Sean Smith's performance captured Viridia's internal awakening with sensitivity, her scenes with Black and McFarlane illustrating the corrosive effect of parental ambition on families bond. Her casting in the July 2024 announced the complemented ensemble balance of experience and fresh talent, adding emotional vulnerability to the political intrigue. League Skill a role as Tyrus, leader of the rival brother Forex Gladiator from the House of Proculus, injected antagonist energy and dark humor into the arena rivalries. The British actor, recognized from Joker and Game of Thrones, brought a distinctive physicality and unpredictable edge to the character, making Tyrus a formidable foil to Ashur's force. Gill's portrayal emphasized the brutal camaraderie and cutthroat competition between Ludi, with his scenes delivering memorable confrontation that heightened the season's stake. Supporting players like Dan Hamill as Cletus, Evander Brown as Ephias, Lois Hunter as Erato, and other rounded out the Ludus roster with authenticity and depth. each contributed to the franchise's signature ensemble feel where every secondary gladiator possessed distinct personalities shaped by their backstories and ambition. Recurring figures such as Andrew McFarlane as Senator Gabinius, James Starr as Cornelia, and Gallagher as young Cassius Julius Caesar wove the political fabric of Rome into the personal drama of the Ludus, creating a rich tapestry of alliances and betrayal. The inclusion of Lucy Lawless as a guest star Lucretia, the series premiere, provided a poignant link to the original Spartacus, her ghostly appearance catalyzing Ashur's rise and reminding viewers of the lingering ghost of Vaticius's house. Lawless's return, confirmed in July 2024, allowed for a seamless blend of legacy and innovation. Her performance, infusing the episodes with the same commanding intensity that defined the franchise's early seasons. Overall casting decisions reflecting a deliberate strategy to honor the original series' international diverse ensemble while introducing the new voices capable of sustaining the franchise's blend of visceral action, political intrigue, and character driven drama. The mix of genre veteran, rising stars, and returning favorites combined with the rigorous physical preparation in New Zealand ensured Spartacus' House of Ashur maintained the high octane spectacle and the emotional complexity that made the original a cultural phenomenon, all while craving its own path in the alternate timeline of Assure's exit. Reviews and facts. Number 1. Aside from both being sword and sandal dramas set in an ancient Rome, 2000's Gladiator has nothing whatsoever to do with Spartacus, the Stars series that aired 3 seasons from 2010 and 2013. But as I watched Spartacus House of Ashur, the new spin off from the latter, my ears keep ringing with that signature line from the former. Are you not entertained? House of Ashur is nothing if not hell bent on entertaining, serving a bajillion of sex and violence to make Game of Thrones look restrained and enough bitchy, backstabbing to power of entire Ryan Murphy miniseries. By the end of the 5 hours sent to critics of a 10-part session, I could only answer the question in the giddy, exhausted affirmative. Yes, yes, I am entertained. Air dated 9 p.m. Friday, December 5. Stars. Cast Nick E. Tarabay, Graham McTavish, Tanika Davis, Jamaica Wagwan, Liwana Barque, Jodie Weber, Claudia Black, India Sean Smith, Lag Gill, creator Stephen D. Knight. That devotion to fun extended to its very premise. Spartacus heads will know that assured Nick E. Tarabay died definitively and gruesomely in the patent show's second season and therefore has no business starring in his own sequel. Spartacus newbies, which include your faithful reviewer, will know none of this and don't really need to. House of Ashur resurrects the fan favorite anyway, just because creator Stephen S. denied. Also, the mind behind the original thought it would be interesting. The choice is justified in universe via a liberious speech from guest star and Spartacus alum Lucy Lawless that boils down to it's an alternate timeline. Don't worry about it. In this version of events, Ashur, a former slave and gladiator, was the one who killed the rebel Spartacus and was subsequently made the master of his own house. Despite of his newfound wealth and status, he is still disdained by an established nobility who miss no opportunity to remind the Syrian, always sat with a sneer of his lowly and foreign origin. As he sees it, his best shot at climbing up the ladder is finding victory in the arena with his own Ludos, stable of fighters, the newest and the most controversial acquisition of which is Achillia Danica Davis and the realm's first female gladiatrix. House of Ashur feels like a silly show in the sense that it puts its lizard brain player front and center without a shred of apology or self seriousness in sight. Its characters don't simply have sex, they grow extravagantly created or guys and get eaten out while catching up on the latest political goals. They don't kill cleanly when they can hack through skulls and tear off body parts, spilling enough blood to fill the Mediterranean. And no one settles for just talking shit in the series specs Latin syntax, dropped article lot of curse words. When they can scheme or to have their enemies publicly humiliated or straight up murdered. A more sober minded drama might try to ground its universe in some authentically gritty version of the past or play up the gravita of its most famous historical figures. House of Ashur gives us a Julius, yes, that one, Caesar Jackson Galahad, whose bleached blonde looks and improbably chiseled jawline look more TikTok influenced shilling for Beverly Hills Med Spa than Augustus' profile on ancient coin. It works because this isn't the kind of show that needs you to buy this version of Caesars is literally factually accurate. This is the kind of show that just wants you to get what a stab worthy little shit he is. But House of Assure's surface level outrageousness shouldn't be mistaken for laziness or sloppiness. On the contrary, it is undergirded by surprisingly sturdy storytelling. Its large plot takes its time so that each new development feels organic and earned rather than plopped in by a screenwriter desperate for cliffhanger. Ashelia does not become a worthy champion overnight but earns her place bit by bit over grueling hours in the process, reminding us precisely how punishing her ordeal is. Assures machinacious failing at first mean it's all the sweeter when they do bear fruit, since we understand how hard won even his minor victories are. Well, that and because we have seen who exactly he is up against. Ashur, played with delicious bombast by Tarabay, is by no means a good guy, arrogant, miraculous, and self centered. He bristles at reminders of his formerly low status but then turns around and treats his own slaves, including staunchly loyal bedmate Hilara Jamaica Wagon, with malicious disregard, but he's easy to root for in a world populated by the likes of Corsicia. Claudia Black, wonderfully wicked, and Proculus, Simon Arblatter, vicious noble who plot to make an example of this outsider, polluting the pure waters of the Republic, lest other non elites get any high faulting ideas about social mobility. House of Assured Stone remains in a cheerful, hedonistic register as of now. For all the death and betrayal on display, it's not really what do you call a profoundly moving experience, but there are hints of more potentially emotional storylines to come, including what looks like a poignant backstory of Ashelia as well as an unexpectedly tender relationship of Shore's grizzled gladiator trainer, Chorus, a formidable Graham McTavish. Granted, none of these nascent subplots have paid dividends yet. As I said, this series likes to take its time, but it's promising that House of Assure seems to understand that if it's the NSFW player that draw us in first, it's the growing attachment to these characters and their lives will keep us on the hook. And while we wait, well, it also ensures you are never very far from an opportunity to do your best impression of a Roman citizen, circa 60 something BC, and rise up in your living room shouting for a sword wielding gladiator to kill, kill, kill. Another review. In the early 2010s, Stars had a hit with the Spartacus franchise because of its copious amount of blood and sex, but mostly because of its creative dialogue. That formula in back in a new series, Spartacus, The House of Ashur, which imagines that Nick E. Tarabay's character Ashur is still alive and leading his own gladiator academy. Opening shot. We see that the death of Ashur, Nick E. Tarabay, at the hands of Spartacus and his soldiers. Then we see him the underworld where Lucretia, Lucy Lawless, tells him he is getting another chance of life, this time as the head of his own Ludus as school of gladiator. Oh, and he is also now the person who kills Spartacus. The guest Ashur wakes up naked next to two naked female slaves. He is the Dominius of the house of Ashur and he is trying to get one of his gladiator a chance at a match on the sand at the gladiator arena in Capua. When he sees his trainees joking around, he comes down and tells them that they must train absent mirth or breaking of laughter. When one of the trainee questions how Ashur kills Spartacus, Ashur challenges him to a battle, with only Ashur foregoing any weapon or just relying on his agility. When the trainee shatters the wine jug Ashur is holding, Ashur uses the shard to kill him, a move immediately questioned by Chorus. Graham McTavish, Ashur's trainer and right hand man. That warrior was their best chance of getting a shot at the arena. Given his access to the Roman general Carsus, Ashur goes to the arena and intercepts Euvidius, Caraman Rhodes, and Corsicia Claudia Beck, wife of local senator Gabinius Andrew McFarlane, and asks for one of his gladiators to get a chance in the arena. He is given a mid-month slot, and a competition at the house of Ashur is started to see who will fight for the honor of the house against warrior from the Ludi led by rival like Proculus, Simon Arblaster, and Opeter Arlo Gibson. What show will it remind you of? Spartacus? House of Ashur is a sequel of sort of the Spartacus series helmed by Stephen S. D. Knight in early 2010. Our take, if you never saw the original run of Spartacus on Stars 15 years ago, Spartacus House of Ashur is a lot to take in. You have copious amount of blood being spilled, especially during the scenes in the gladiator arena. Throats are slit, everyone and people are literally cut into two. Heads literally roll, blood squirt and spray everywhere. Then there's the nudity and sex. It's not stubble, and anyone being filmed can potentially go full frontal. But what's the toughest thing to get used to in the syntax of the dialogue? If you did not know about the 2010 series, you would have no idea why these characters are speaking in a syntax that drops article like a and the and reverse subject and verbs despite that though there are a lot of f-bombs dropped as well as the c words for each gender's private being liberally used. The syntax is attempting by Dick Knight and his writers to give the English spoken by the character a bit of Latin flavor. Latin, the now dead language, not Latin like Latin America. It's not as dense as, say, Shakespeare's syntax, but we were happily that our screener had subtitles that we could not turn off. All of this is to say that this reimagined alternate history timeline should be catnip to all of those who loved Spartacus back in 2010 and missed all of what we described above. The story is a bit slight given that it's essentially about to get people to notice the house of Ashur through a female gladiatrix. His name's Ashelia Seneca Davis. The acting by Tarabay and the rest of the cast is about stubble as a kick to the groin. But this show only needs a somewhat cohesive story to be appealing to those that wanted the blood, sex, and creative dialogue that the franchise has been known for. Performance worth watching, even in her brief scenes at the end of episode, where Ashore and Chorus find her as they look for a new slave warrior. Tanika Davis is amazingly fierce as Ashelia. Yes and yes. Parting short, after Ashur promises Ashelia for her freedom if she is victorious in the arena, she lets go of his neck, long story, kneels before him and calls him Dominius. Sleeper star, Claudia's black Cossia is pretty devout, and we see that with the warrior she chose to face Ashur's gladiator in the arena. Most plottily line when Chorus praises a war in arena, Ashur jokes to him, "Shall I seek to arrange for you to swallow his cock upon consents?" And Chorus reply, "It would be an honor to drink such potent blessing." Or call stream it. If you are a fan of Spartacus franchise, if you are not, you are going to be too confused and confounded by Spartacus House of Ashur to want to continue past the first couple of episodes, so skip it. After dual strikes crippled the television industry for the better part of 2023 and severely impacted the quality and quantity of what network could release in 2024 and 2025 marked something of a return to normalcy for creative and audiences alike. Sure, the head of the days of peak TV has certainly receded in all the rear view, and sure, we are not quite back to the place where we can all depend on all of our favorite shows to return with new seasons at the same time year in year out. But what 2025 lacked in terms of calendar consistency of output, it more than made up for by empowering a wide range of visionary voices to demonstrate their mastery of the medium in their own ways. On one hand, you have the veteran prior Emmy nominees like Dan Fogelman, Brad Lisby, and Dan Erickson, as well as previous Emmy winner like Vince Gilligan and R. Scott Gamimill. Each released new series this year and won over viewers, sure, but more importantly for our purpose here today, that this Cerning decider staff on the other rising new voices like Benito Skinner, Ben Krongold, and Rebecca Shawn did the noise impossible by convincing millennial and Zoomers to stop doom scrolling on TikTok long enough to build a bond with their respective new series. So, for the next few minutes, at least try to ignore the dual existential threat of industry consolidation and the attention thriving content creator, and the instead focus on the best TV had to offer in 2025, according to the team decided. The staff here at the Decider gathered over the last few weeks to pull together what ultimately became the list of the top 17 TV shows of 2025 that you are about to read. A few notes on process. We began by ranking our own individual top 10 shows of this year. The process was resulted in a short list of 61 different shows that at least 1% felt worthy of inclusion in the list. We tailed these votes that came from a dozen different decider contributors and put them into one master list, which we then used as a jumping off point for the debate on the merits of this selection. After some, shall we say, spirited conversation, we eventually arrived at was the following of list of 17 programs, which we will count down in descending order until we reach the pinnacle of the medium that we are so devoted to. You will find a broad mix of series included this list, everything from being budget, high concept, science fiction, fair to deliciously disposable reality TV that reflect the decider team's diverse interest and obsession. Let us know how we did and what you loved and loathed in the comments below. Honorable mentions: Dancing with the Stars Season 34 ABC, Hacks Season 4 HBO Max, Heated Rivalry HBO Max, King of Hills Season 14 Hulu, and The Lowdown FX and The White Lotus Season 3 HBO, The Secret of Life's Momo's Wives Season 2 and 3 Hulu. Creator Jeff Jenkins. Stars Tyler, Frankie Paul, Whitney Levitt, Mackie Neely, Jennifer, Michaela, Matthew, Lila Taylor, Miranda McWhorter, Demi, Jesse Draper. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives took the world by storm when it first premised in 2024, but the calendar year of 2025 Hulu gifted fans with not one but two more full seasons and two reunions of being worthy episodes. What started as a soft swinging scandal has grown into something much more sinister, if you could believe it, with the allegations of affairs and sexual assault and rehearsing of childhood trauma taking center stage in 2025. Beyond that, the Morom wives have cross pollinated with other Disney backed shows like Dancing with the Stars and The Bachelorette, proving that these women are at the center of the reality TV Zitcast and they are not going anywhere. Bring on season 4. Sam Nungesser. Adult FX Hulu. Creator Ben Krongold and Rebecca Shawn. Stars Malik Asal, Jack Inhan, Amito Rao, Owen Thali, and Lucy Fire. Adults felt like a breath of fresh air in a year of television packed with high skates, trauma, betrayal, and absurdity. I'm looking at you, the rehearsal, and the cheer company. Whatever happened to the good old fashioned hangout sitcom? The FX comedy delivers on the premise that has been seen before, but this time it's for the brain rot digital age. Malik Lassel, Jack Inhan, Amito Rao, and Thali, and Lucy Fryer start a star as a group of friends who all live in Samir's family home in Queens, where the water boiler is always broken and the mailbox is overflowing so much that the series finale is about the gang finally going through their email like adults are supposed to. What makes adults more entertaining is that every characters have a chaotic edge that they just can't seem to restrain in the same vein as Broad City and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They will all make terrible decisions and desperately hold on to the scrap of their youth when faced with realities of being adult. But what cuts through the noise is their love for each other and the unexpected spark that erupts in the series finale. Despite of its sticky start, Adults is a comedy goldmine ripe for plenty of fun in the newly announced season 2. The Real Housewives of a Salt Lake City season 6 Bravo. Showrunner Lori Gordon. Stars Lisa, Method Marks, Heather Gay, Whitney Rose Angie, Mary Cosby, Britain Batman. The Real Housewife of Salt Lake is one of those shows where you always wonder how it could possibly get better in the next season. But lo and behold, this Bravo series has gone from Jen Shaw's on camera FBI raid to Monica's Gracia reality Von Tessera revealed to conversation of circle jerks and high body count here to Meredith Marks' elect off camera meltdown on the flight home from their cast trip. Whether they're opening about their failed businesses and unconventional marriages or merely dropping one liner that belong to the history book of Bravo. These women and Utah in general are doing reality television right way. Overcompensating Prime Video creator Benito Skinner stars Benito Skinner, Wally Bram, and Mary Beth Baron Adam D. McCall, drawing inspirational from his own high school year as a closest football player and coming out experiences in college. Comedian Benito Skinner writes and stars in overcompensating as Benny, a fictionalized version of himself. The series opens as Benny is moving into the college for the first time. We see him masking his true identity to fit in by attempting to join the frat, and his sister's boyfriend is a member and the befriending another misfit Carmen who was an outsider in high school trying to change that as college began. Benny and Carmen friendship is beating heart of the 8 episode season as they try to figure out who they are and accept certain truth about themselves. As someone who attended college in 2010, overcompensating, which is a set nebulous time period that might be 2011 but could also be 2021, is deeply relatable. Whether you see yourself in Benny's journey, understand exactly how Carmen is feeling as she starts her freshman year, or you were just the person asking an older friend to buy you flavored vodka. A canon event for many Gen Z's college students, proving me wrong. There's something to connect with on this show. We are all overcompensated for something at some point. Parasite Hulu creator Dan Fogelman. Stars Sterling K. Brown, Julian James, and more. Set in a curious community populated by the world's most prominent figures, Paradise follows Xavier Collins, Sterling K. Brown, Secret Service agent, President Carl Bradford, James Madison, and the chief suspect in his murder. As Xavier races to prove his innocence, find the real killer, and recover stolen government intel, Paradise delivered jaw-dropping twists that will keep viewers hooked, howling, and hypothesizing. The Emmys-nominated series featured powerhouse performance from the stacked cast, a stellar soundtrack and score, plus the standout installment that goes fully on disaster movies. Season 1 is wild, underrated, right? 13th on this list, but top 5 in my mind. That tees up an intriguing season 2, and I can't wait to see what Fogelman and fam have in store. Nicole Gulashi. Task. Creator Brad. Stars Mark, Tom, Emilia, Fabian. On its face, Task could be seen as a typical CBS type procedural. A veteran FBI agent with heaps of personal trauma leads a team to disparate personalities in a race to solve sprawling violent case, but that's only on its face. Within seconds of meeting Mark Ruffalo, Tom Brandy, and his group, you will see heart beating wildly inside each of these finely wrought characters. You will follow them anywhere, like into nearly episode-long forest-set gunfight that transpires from three directions, and Task which returned to the Pennsylvania landscape and regional accent. Creator writer Brad, featured in Mayor of Easttown, will also rip you apart on its criminal side. Tom, a garbage man turned drug house robber, Robbie is some kind of fallen angel here, a man brought low by his own decisions but still with the grace to make the arc of his life mean something. We all wish for that, however awful life gets. In 2025, Tosk took out our emotions places at TV crime drama has not quite in some time. Johnny Loftus, The Righteous Gemstone, Season 4, HBO. Creator Danny McBride. Stars Danny McBride, Eddie Peterson, Adam Devine, Walton Goggins, Holmes John Goodman. It's crying shame that Danny McBride chose to end his parody of family struggle after 4 seasons. That said, if there is ever a way to go out, it's on the top and with a bang. The anthology Israel element of the show has always lent itself to feeling fresh year after year. But bringing in Megan Mullally, Shane William Scott, and Michelle Roker to play the Mislap family, close friends of the Gemstone clan and comedic foils, elevated always hilarious comedy to new heights, the kind that can only be reached through jackpats packs. If you know, you know. Throw in harrowing origin story told through the very fast Elijah Jamstone, aka Bradley Cooper, in the season 4 opener, and you have a winner of finale installment. Rip the righteous Jamstone like Amy Lee if you are in our hearts forever. The Traitor, Season 3, Peacock. Creator Stephen Lambert and Sam Reese Jones. Host Alan Cumming. Are you a faithful or traitor? Those 7 little words sent shiver down the spines of millions as they headed to Peacock each week to watch another thrilling installment of Peacock's hit reality series, The Traitor. As the show's master of ceremonies, Alan Cumming, with his wicked delivery and impish glee over the show's proceeding, recently won his second consecutive Emmys for Outstanding Host for a reality or reality competition program. Season three's electric cast engaged in several memorable exchanges, including two traitor versus traitor showdown at the Round Table featuring Survivor icon Booston, Rob Marino, and RuPaul's Drag Race winner Bob, the drag queen, and a later confrontation between Survivors Krylon Vigor and Big Brother's Daniel Rice. With the season 4 set to premiere in January, fans don't have too long for their delicious deceptions and cunning strategies a new batch of Crystal Dueler will deliver. The studio Apple TV. Created by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Peter Haig, Alex Georgi, and Frida Pairs. Starring Seth Rogen, Iki Brainholtz, Chase Hugh Wonders, and Catherine O'Hara. To call the studio a critical darling would be an underestimate. The debut of season of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg drenched Apple TV comedy about a newly appointed head of a movie studio captured 13 Emmys, including Outstanding Comedy and Rogen taking home Outstanding Lead Actor honors. The show deftly balances over the top Hollywood star rate and relatable realism without being too inside baseball about the entertainment industry. The razor sharp writing, strong supporting cast, and never ending array of celebrities willing to make fun of themselves combine to make the studio one of the most enjoyable show of the year. Thanks for the memories, Sals Preston, Josh Scott, Sorokach. The Summer I Turned Pretty. Season 3 on Prime Videos. Creator Jenny Han. Stars Lola Tung, Christopher Bradley, Gavian, Sean Kaufman, Rain Spencer, and more. Team Cornet or Team Chimera? That was the question that echoed throughout the pop culture sphere in 2025, all thanks to Jenny Han and her best selling book turned Prime Video series, The Summer I Turned Pretty, as Ballet Tongue set out to finally choose between the brothers Conrad, Brini, and Jamira Fisher. Viewers collectively channeled their inner teens and lost a semblance of chill. Professional athletes, unleashed celebrities were asked to choose between the boys. Brands raced to create merch and take sides. Taylor Swift skyrocketed up with the charts after every new needle drop. Two tired dark chocolate cake with the raspberry Colliers filling and mirror glaze took over to top for you pages. People sexualized peaches and slutty little watches flocked to Mitchell Craft store to browse the fake flowers aisle and set their alarm for 3 a.m. to ensure they got a jump on in show Easter egg hunts, all because of TSITP. With a supersized season, Han kept the party going by expanding the story, taking us to Paris, and scoring the TSITP. The movie deal. Every show on this list made some level of impact by the summer, but the summer I turned pretty was a cultural moment. And thankfully, we don't have to say goodbye. Angie. The Cheer Company, HBO. Creator Tim Robinson and Zach Can. Stars Tim Robinson, Lake Bell, Sophia Lillis, Jim Downey. Tim Robinson's brand of cringe comedy is not for everyone. His characters are often socially awkward, overly bash, and prone to fit of aggression, which tends to result in making the audience uncomfortable. This is why he is usually best in small doses and why his A24 feature film Friendship struggled a bit. Robinson smartly deviated from his comedic persona for the cheer company, dialing down his aggro tendencies in favor of the learning more into being a semi competent professional and family man. That's not to say he's normal though, or nor any approaching it. When his character is in series, an Ohio based mall developer named Ron Prosper suffer a very public humiliation. He makes it his life's mission to track down the people responsible in an attempt to get them to apologize so he can win back the trust and respect of his family and co-worker. This is a bold and bizarre series, one that's got more in common with Twin Peaks. The return than any other traditional comedy you might be thinking of. Viewers are never be able to anticipate where the show is going from episode to episode, let alone from the scene to scene, which is what makes it such a delightfully offbeat viewing experience. You will gasp, you will laugh, and heck, you might even empathize with Prosper along the way. We can't wait to see where this one goes in season 2. Mark Twain, Adolescence, Netflix. Creators Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne. Stars Stephen Graham, Owen Cooper, Ashley Walter, Aaron Doherty. Adolescence, the chilling four-part crime drama shot in one continuous take, proved itself as ingenious through as seamless filming style once it debuted in Netflix in March, centering on a 13-year-old Jamie Miller. Owen Cooper, after he accused of murdering a girl from his school, the mini-series take over viewers on a wild psychological ride as we not only attempt to determine if Jamie is innocent, but also as his family, led by Patrick Eddie Miller, Stephen Graham, navigates the turmoil. Just as impressive as Adolescence format where it performances anchored by Graham and Cooper, both Graham and Cooper took home wins at this year's Emmy, with the latter across actor even becoming the youngest male Emmy winner in the history of the award shows. AV. Andor, Season 2, Disney Plus. Creator or showrunner Tony Gilroy. Stars Degio Luna, Adria Arjona, Stellan, and Denise Go. On paper, Andor sounds like a snooze, a Disney Plus Star Wars show that follows a character best known for dying in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Storylines that grapple with the senator marrying her teen daughter off and an imperial intelligence officer sucking up to her boss. And yet, Andor isn't simply one of the best show of 2025. It's one of the greatest show ever made. Under the stewardship or showrunner Tony Gilroy, Michael Clayton, and Dor becomes the bracing anti-fascist masterpiece populated by some of the greatest living actors playing some of the most nuanced characters even in the galaxy far, far away. This show does not serve as a prelude as Rogue One as much as it acts as to call the arms for its audience. You watched the original Star Wars film and dreamt of wielding a lightsaber, but Andor will have you awakening to your own political power. Megan O'Caffey. The Rehearsal, Season 2, created by starring Nathan Fielder. If you try to explain this brilliant, deranged complexity of the rehearsal, you would sound like a side character on a Tim Robinson series. The second season of HBO's innovative comedy ostensibly ostensibly centers on Nathan Fielder attempting to limit the number of deadly aviation crashes by improving the cockpit communication between the captain and first officer. You know, typical comedy stuff. Fielder legitimately tries to improve the real life safety issues, but his Rube Goldberg genius descended into the cascading cauldron of absurdity that includes Captain Sully Evanson's hit 2003 song Bring Me to Life and breastfeeding from the giant puppet. Nathan Fiedler is an indisgustable mix of mad scientist and comedy genius, and the rehearsal and audacious raw D-force that unlike everything you will ever seen in his piece The Resistance. GS. Floorbus, Apple TV creator Vince Gillian, stars Rai Sion, Chlorine Voida, Clora Manuel Vesca, and Samba Skewer. Rice Sions put in an Emmy worthy performance in Pluribus at the latest series from Vince Gillian, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. She plays cynical romance novel author Carol Sturka, who is one of the few people in the planet who is not infected by an alien virus algorithm. We are not exactly sure, but it has made that planet into a peaceful, content, billion strong hive mind, something Carol want to know part of. Shot in signature cinematic style. Plurbis is weird, funny, creepy, and fascinating all the time. Same time. Joel Keller. Sphereness, Season 2, Apple TV. Creator Dan Erickson. Stars Adam Scott, Britt Lower, Tarmel Tillman, Patricia Arquette, John Tortoro, Zach Cherry, and more. I have said it before and I'll say it again. Servicing Season 2 exceeded my wildest dreams and nightmares. After an agonizing 3 year wait, fans of Apple TV's acclaimed workplace thriller returned to the office to learn what the hell happened to Mark, Adam Scout, Hallie, Britt Lower, Irving, John Tortor, and Dylan, Zach Cherry. After season 1's colossal cliffhanger, the exemplary sophomore season pushed the show's creative boundaries to impressive new heights, drastically raised the stakes for innings and outings, and challenging the viewers to engage in thoughtful discussion. Through services, Swiersons sadly lost out onto the outstanding drama series Emmy. The show still won big, and Tormel Tillman made Emmy history for his standout performance as Milky Vilchik. Season 2 delivered some of the year's greatest TV episodes, featured powerhouses' performance, sometimes from the actors playing several versions of their character, and nearly tore the fandom apart with its brilliant controversial finale. We need season 3 as soon as possible. So pray to Kai that it doesn't take 3 years to get here. Angie. The Pit, HBO Max. The creator or showrunner R. Scout Jamil. Stars Noah Weil, Catherine Lanessa, Patrick Bell, and Sean Hatcher. What HBO Max's The Pit has accomplished in its first year on the air is nothing short of extraordinary. Massive ratings. 5 Emmy, including Best Drama and a new pop culture hero in Noah Weil, Dr. Robbie, Beyond the Superlatives and a Colodance. Through the pit managed something even more special. It recircuited the prestige medical drama. The pit grabbed the viewers with its propulsive pacing, jaw-dropping cases, and grisly medical realism, but it earned its rabid following by introducing us to a new, tight-knit fictional work family for us to root for. We were not just crashing out during the Pit Fest episodes because of the horror of situation, but because we were locked in with all of these incredible characters.